I raised him alone, paid every bill, cheered every game, cried at every milestone. Then one day, my phone lit up with wedding photos. My only son, my baby boy, marrying the love of his life. No invite, no call, no seat saved for mother of the groom. I watched the first dance, the cake cutting, the toasts, through strangers' stories, while I sat alone in my Seattle living room, heart in pieces. Then I discovered the worst part. He told everyone I was dead. Years of silent love, hidden sacrifices, and one final secret that shattered everything. This is the raw, real story of a mother erased from her son's biggest day, and the moment I finally spoke up. You won't believe what happened next. Watch till the end. I can still close my eyes and replay every second of that phone call, like it's burned into the inside of my eyelids. It was one of those perfect Pacific Northwest October afternoons, crisp air smelling faintly of wet pine and distant bonfires, the kind of day that makes you think everything's finally settling into place after years of holding your breath. I was in the kitchen of our little two-bedroom Craftsman in Ballard, the one I'd bought with the last of the divorce settlement money when Ethan was 8. The house still smelled like the cinnamon rolls I'd baked that morning, hoping the scent would somehow travel through the phone and remind him of home. The phone buzzed on the granite counter, his custom ringtone, that old acoustic version of Here Comes the Sun he'd picked out when he was 15 and obsessed with classic rock. My heart did that little flip it always did when his name lit up the screen. Ethan, my boy. 28 now, but still my boy. Hey, Mom. His voice came through clear but clipped, like he was walking fast somewhere crowded. I could hear faint traffic in the background, maybe downtown Seattle, maybe Bellevue, where his new tech job had him commuting. Ethan, sweetheart, hi. I wiped flour off my hands onto the dish towel and pressed the phone harder to my ear, as if that would pull him closer. I was just thinking about you. How's everything? How's Chloe? Good. Busy. Work's insane right now. Big sprint deadline next week. Wedding planning's, yeah, it's a lot. He let out a short laugh, the kind that's more exhale than joy. It didn't sound like the Ethan I knew, the big, unguarded one that used to fill the whole house when he was little, and I'd tickle him until he begged for mercy. I leaned against the counter, smiling anyway. I bet. Venues book up fast around here. Have you guys picked a date yet? Or a place? I keep seeing these gorgeous barns out toward Snohomish, rustic but classy. Or that winery on Bainbridge if you want something with a view. There was a pause, just long enough for me to notice. Yeah, we're still narrowing it down. Something smallish, intimate, you know? Chloe's family has a lot of opinions. Another small laugh, tighter this time. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Of course, whatever you two want. I'm so excited, honey. I've been daydreaming about what I'll wear. Maybe that soft periwinkle dress I got for your cousin's wedding last year? Or should I go more traditional, navy, maybe? I don't want to clash with the bridesmaids or anything. Another pause. Longer. I could almost picture him rubbing the back of his neck the way he did when he was 6 and had to tell me he'd broken my favorite vase playing soccer in the living room. Soon, he said finally. We'll send out the invites next month, probably. Save the dates are already out to most people. Most people. The words landed like a pebble in still water. I felt the ripples, but didn't want to look at them yet. Great, I said brightly, forcing cheer into my voice. Just let me know if you need help with anything. Address lists, favors, whatever. I've got time. Retirement has its perks. I laughed lightly. And I've got that old family recipe for the lemon bars you love. I could make 100 if you want. Thanks, Mom. That's sweet. We've got a caterer handling most of it, though. Chloe's mom is kind of running point on the details. I swallowed. Of course, she's got experience. 3 weddings in her family already, right? Yeah. He cleared his throat. Look, I gotta jump. Meeting in 5. Just wanted to check in quick. Love you. Love you more, I said automatically, the way I always had. Call me soon, okay? Tell me about the venue when you decide. I want to picture it. Will do. Bye, Mom. The line went dead. I stood there holding the phone for a long minute, staring at the screen until it dimmed and went black. The kitchen felt suddenly too quiet, the hum of the refrigerator too loud, the tick of the wall clock too insistent. I set the phone down carefully, like it might bite me if I moved too fast.
He'd said most people. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Weddings were stressful. Chloe came from one of those big, polished East Side families. Doctors, lawyers, a summer house on Whidbey Island. They probably had their own traditions, their own inner circle. Ethan was just trying to keep the peace. That's what good partners did. I walked to the living room and sank onto the couch, pulling the throw blanket over my lap even though it wasn't cold. The mantel was lined with photos. Ethan at 5 in his first Little League uniform, gap-toothed grin. Ethan at 18 in his cap and gown, arm around me at UW commencement. Ethan at 25, hugging me at my retirement party from the hospital after 32 years as an ICU nurse. In every picture, he was smiling at me like he was my whole world. I traced the frame of the last one with my finger. "You're busy," I whispered to the photo. "That's all." But deep down, something small and cold had started to settle in my chest, a whisper of doubt I couldn't quite name yet. That afternoon, I ordered a new pair of heels, silver, elegant, low enough that my bad knee wouldn't complain during the ceremony. I pictured them clicking across a wooden dance floor, pictured Ethan spinning me around like he used to when he was little, and I'd put on Frank Sinatra records to teach him how to slow dance for his middle school formal. I pictured myself standing in the front row, tears in my eyes, watching my only child promise forever to the woman he loved. I believed it would happen. Why wouldn't I? I'd given him everything, every overtime shift so he could have new cleats, every Saturday chauffeuring him to robotics club, every sleepless night when he had the flu or a broken heart or just needed to talk at 2 a.m. I'd been the constant, the safe place, the one who never left. I hung the dress bag in the closet right next to my winter coats and smiled at it every time I opened the door. A promise to myself. This was happening. My boy was getting married, and I would be there, front and center, where I belonged. The invites would come. They had to. That call was the last time Ethan spoke to me directly. I didn't know it then, of course. How could I? But looking back, I can hear it now. The faint crack in his voice, the way he rushed the goodbye, the careful distance he kept between soon and any real detail. It was the sound of a door starting to close, and I was still standing on the wrong side of it, holding a phone that would never ring the same way again.
The weeks after that October call stretched into something slow and syrupy, like watching a candle burn down from both ends. I kept telling myself it was nothing, just life moving fast for a 28-year-old with a fiancé, a mortgage on a starter condo in Fremont, and a job that paid more in stock options than I'd ever made in 30 years of nursing. I'd raised him to chase big things. Now he was chasing them. That's what I repeated in my head every morning when I woke up and reached for my phone first thing, hoping for a missed call or a text bubble that never appeared. At first, the silence was small. A day without a reply to my "How was your week?" message. Then 2, then 5. I typed something casual. "Saw the new coffee place on 45th opened. Reminds me of that hole in the wall you loved in college. We should go sometime." And watched the little "delivered" tag sit there like an accusation. No read receipt, no 3 bouncing dots, nothing. I started filling the quiet with routines. Mornings, coffee on the back porch, watching the neighbor's golden retriever chase leaves across the fence. Afternoons, walks around Green Lake, earbuds in, listening to podcasts about empty nest syndrome or blended families, anything that made me feel less alone in the ache. Evenings, cooking too much food, lasagna, chili, that chicken pot pie he used to request for his birthday. I'd portion it into Tupperware, label it Ethan Freeze, and stack it in the freezer like offerings to a god who'd stopped answering prayers. I sent the first care package in early November. Nothing extravagant, just his favorite. Homemade chocolate chip cookies with sea salt, a soft gray scarf I'd knitted myself, badly, but with love, and a card that said, "Thinking of you in the rain. Stay warm. Love you always." I tracked it on USPS. Delivered. No thank you text. No photo of him opening it. I told myself he was swamped. Wedding planning plus holiday season plus new team onboarding at Amazon. Reasonable. By Thanksgiving, the silence had teeth. I'd invited him and Chloe over like always. Turkey, stuffing, the works. Texted the usual. Doors open at 2. Bringing your favorite pecan pie. Can't wait to see you both. Read at 10:47 a.m. No response. I set the table anyway. 2 extra places. Lit the candles. Waited until 4:30 before I started eating alone, turkey going cold on fine china I'd only used for special occasions since the divorce. I scrolled Instagram while I chewed. There he was, a story from Chloe's account. A cozy table at what looked like her parents' house in Bellevue. White tablecloth, gold-rimmed plates, a centerpiece of white roses and eucalyptus. Ethan in a burgundy sweater I'd bought him 2 Christmases ago, laughing, arm around her. Caption: grateful for family and the best fiancé ever. Thankful. Family. The word twisted in my gut like a knife. I set my fork down. The pecan pie sat untouched. I cried quietly at the table, tears dripping onto the napkin folded in my lap. Not loud sobs, just the kinds that leak out when your body can't hold them anymore. December came. More packages. A Christmas ornament shaped like a tiny laptop for his tech job. A bottle of his favorite microbrew from Fremont Brewing. Another card. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Miss your face. Call when you can. Delivered. Silence. I started checking his socials obsessively. His Instagram was still public from his college days. He'd never bothered to lock it down. Stories every few days. Him and Chloe at a holiday lights display in Bellevue. Ice skating at the rink downtown. A New Year's Eve kiss at some rooftop bar with city lights glittering behind them. No tags for me. No old photos resurfacing with captions like, shout out to mom for everything. Just him, her family, her friends. A close circle I was no longer inside. One night in January, I sat cross-legged on the living room rug with a glass of Pinot Noir and my laptop open to his profile. I went back years, old posts from when he was in high school. There I was. Mom made killer tacos tonight. #blessed. A selfie of us at his high school graduation, my arm around his waist, both of us beaming. Couldn't have done it without her. A video from his 21st birthday, me singing off-key while he blew out candles. Thousands of likes back then. Comments from friends. Best mom ever. Goals. Now, the last post that even mentioned me was from 3 years ago. A simple, Happy Mother's Day to the woman who raised me solo. Love you, Mom. It had 47 likes. Chloe hadn't commented. I closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling. Was I imagining the distance? Had I done something, said something without realizing? I replayed our conversation in my head. I'd always been careful. Never criticized Chloe, even when her comments about traditional family values made my skin crawl. Never asked for too much time. Never pushed about grandkids or money or anything. I'd been the easy mom, the one who didn't make waves. But the silence kept growing. One rainy February evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I called. Straight to voicemail. His voice, older now, deeper, played the greeting I'd heard 1,000 times. Hey, it's Ethan. Leave a message. I waited for the beep. My voice cracked on the first word. Hi, honey. It's Mom. Just wanted to hear your voice. Hope you're okay. Hope the wedding planning's going well. I miss you. Call me when you can. Love you. I hung up. Sat on the floor with my back against the couch, hugging my knees. The house felt too big, too empty. The clock ticked. Rain tapped the windows like impatient fingers. That night I dreamed of him as a little boy, running into my arms after school, smelling like playground dirt and sunshine. In the dream, I held him tight and whispered, I'll always be here. When I woke up, the pillow was wet. I told myself one more time, he's busy, he'll come around. Weddings make people crazy. But the freezer was full of frozen meals labeled with his name, and the guest room still had his old comforter folded at the foot of the bed. And every morning, I still checked my phone first thing, hoping for the impossible. The silence wasn't just growing. It was becoming a wall. And I was starting to wonder if I'd ever find a way through it.
By early March, the silence between Ethan and me had hardened into something almost physical, a thick pane of glass I kept pressing my face against, hoping to see through to the other side. I'd stopped sending daily texts. They felt like shouting into a void. Instead, I checked his social media the way some people check the weather, habitual, compulsive, half afraid of what I'd find. It was the only window left into his life, and even that was starting to fog over. That Tuesday started ordinary enough. Gray Seattle sky, the kind that makes you forget what blue looks like. I was off from my part-time shift at the senior center. I'd gone back to volunteering after retirement, kept my hands busy, my mind from wandering too far into the what-ifs. I sat at the kitchen table with a lukewarm mug of tea and my phone, scrolling Facebook the way older women do when the house is too quiet. Birthdays, recipes, political rants from distant cousins, the occasional cute grandkid video that made my chest ache. Then it popped up in my feed, posted by someone I barely remembered, Sarah Jenkins. Ethan's old high school friend from the robotics team. We'd met a handful of times at tournaments. She'd always been polite, called me Mrs. Harper even after Ethan graduated. Her profile picture was still the same one from 5 years ago, her in a cap and gown, arms slung around Ethan's shoulders. The post read, "Can't believe Ethan and Chloe are tying the knot this weekend. Venue looks stunning. Congrats, you two. Hashtag wedding season. Hashtag so happy for them." Attached was a photo, a refrigerator door in what looked like a bright modern kitchen. Magneted to it was a cream-colored save the date card, a Langret script, watercolor vineyard illustration in soft greens and lavenders. "Ethan and Chloe, please join us as we celebrate our marriage. Saturday, March 18th, Willamette Valley Vineyards, Portland, Oregon. Cocktail attire." No registry link, no mention of RSVP details, no +1 for family, just the date, the place, and those two names floating together like they'd always belonged that way. My thumb froze over the screen. This weekend, 4 days from now. I zoomed in on the photo until the pixels blurred. The card had a tiny gold foil heart in the corner. Classy. Expensive. The kind of thing Chloe's mother would have insisted on. Chloe had mentioned once in passing how her mom was very particular about stationery. I'd laughed politely then. Now the laugh stuck in my throat. I scrolled to the comments. 23 already. "OMG, finally! So excited to dance the night away. Portland in March. Fingers crossed for sun. Best couple ever. Can't wait." Heart emojis, champagne glasses, fireworks. Not one said, "Will Mrs. Harper be there?" Not one tagged me. Not one asked where the mother of the groom was hiding. I felt the room tilt. My tea sloshed over the rim of the mug, staining the tablecloth I'd ironed just last week. I didn't wipe it up. I just stared at the screen, heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Sarah had tagged Ethan and Chloe in the post. I clicked Ethan's name. His profile loaded instantly. No new posts from him, but the tag pulled up the same save the date photo on his feed, reposted to his stories. A little heart animation floated over it. No caption, just the image looping silently. I switched to Chloe's profile. Public, of course. She was one of those people who curated her life like a magazine spread. Her most recent story, a boomerang of her trying on veils at some boutique downtown, laughing, hair perfect. Caption, "Counting down the days. Hashtag bride-to-be." I typed a message to Ethan before I could talk myself out of it, fingers shaking so badly I had to backspace 3 times. "Saw the save the date on Sarah's post. So excited for you both. When do I get mine?" Sent. The message turned blue. Delivered at 2:14 p.m., then read at 2:17 p.m. 3 little dots appeared, then disappeared, then nothing. I waited. 5 minutes, 10, 15. The kitchen clock ticked louder with every second. Rain started tapping the window, soft at first, then steady, like it was trying to drown out the quiet in my head. I refreshed the page. The post was still there. More comments now. "Venue is gorgeous. Did you book the whole place?" "Chloe's dress is going to be insane. I just know it." I clicked through to Sarah's profile, hoping maybe she'd posted more. A few older photos, Ethan at a group hike last summer, Chloe beside him, arms linked. Another from Christmas, Ethan holding a glass of wine at what looked like Chloe's parents' house, toasting the camera. No me, no trace. I went back to the original post and stared at the save the date card again. March 18th, 4 days. A vineyard in Oregon. Cocktail attire. I pictured the rows of grapevines, the string lights, the long wooden tables set for dinner. I pictured Ethan standing under an arch, saying vows. I pictured Chloe's family, her mom in pearls, her dad with that proud, quiet smile he always wore in photos. I pictured the photos that would flood every platform afterwards, the kiss, the cake, the first dance. And in none of them would be a woman in a periwinkle dress standing off to the side, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, whispering, "That's my boy." I set the phone down face up, like it might buzz any second with an apology, an explanation, an invite slipped through the mail slot of our fractured relationship. It didn't. Instead, the silence answered back, louder, colder, more final than any words could have been. I stood up slowly, legs unsteady, and walked to the hallway mirror. My reflection looked older than I remembered, lines around my eyes deeper, mouth tight, hair escaping the loose bun I'd pinned that morning. I touched my cheek. Cold skin. 4 days. They were getting married in 4 days, and I'm finding out from a stranger's casual Facebook post. The realization settled over me like wet snow, heavy, numbing. I wasn't just not invited, I wasn't even worth mentioning. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the hardwood floor, knees to my chest. The rain kept falling, the phone stayed silent, and somewhere in the back of my mind, a small, terrified voice whispered the question I'd been avoiding for months. What if this isn't just silence? What if this is goodbye? March 18th arrived like any other Saturday. Gray dawn creeping through the blinds, coffee brewing too strong because my hands were unsteady, the house quiet, except for the low hum of the heater kicking on. I hadn't slept more than an hour at a stretch all week. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that save the date card on Sarah's fridge, the vineyard arch, Ethan's name next to Chloe's, like it had always been inevitable. I kept telling myself maybe there'd been a last-minute invite, maybe a text I'd missed in the night. Maybe he'd call that morning and say, "Mom, I'm sorry, come now, we need you here." He didn't. I stayed in my robe all morning, soft gray fleece I'd bought years ago for lazy Sundays we used to spend together watching old movies. I made toast I didn't eat. I watered the pothos on the windowsill, even though it didn't need it. Anything to keep moving, to keep the panic from settling too deep in my bones. Around noon, I gave up pretending. I sat on the couch, legs tucked under me, phone in both hands like it was a lifeline. I opened Instagram first, his profile still public, thank God, because if he'd gone private, I'd have had nothing left. The grid was the same as always, him and Chloe at a brewery last week, a black and white shot of their hands intertwined with new wedding bands glinting. Wait, no, those were engagement rings still. The wedding was today. No new posts yet. I switched to stories. They started trickling in around 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. First one, a boomerang from Chloe's account, her veil fluttering in a breeze, white lace against green hills. Caption, "It's happening, ring, heart eyes emoji." A soft acoustic guitar strummed in the background of the video. My throat closed. Next, a friend's story, wide shot of the vineyard, rows of grapevines stretching toward Mount Hood in the distance, white tents set up, string lights already glowing even though it was still daylight, tables draped in ivory linen, centerpieces of white roses and baby's breath, guests milling around in cocktail dresses and suits, navy, blush, charcoal. I scanned every face. No one I recognized from our side. No cousins, no old neighbors, no one who'd known Ethan when he was a skinny kid with braces. Then the live videos started. One from Chloe's maid of honor, someone named Lauren I'd never met. The camera panned across the ceremony space, wooden chairs in neat rows, an arch wrapped in greenery and fairy lights, a string quartet playing Pachelbel's canon. Guests stood as the music swelled. Ethan appeared at the end of the aisle first, tall, shoulders broad in a charcoal tux, hair neatly combed the way I used to do it for him before school pictures. He looked nervous, excited, handsome, my handsome boy. The camera swung to Chloe. She floated down the aisle on her father's arm, dress simple but breathtaking, off-the-shoulder lace, long train trailing behind her like spilled moonlight. Ethan's face softened the moment he saw her. That smile, the same one he'd given me when he scored his first goal in soccer, when he got into UW, when I surprised him with concert tickets. Pure, unguarded joy. They met under the arch. Vows were exchanged. I couldn't hear them clearly over the wind and the string music, but I saw Ethan's lips move, saw Chloe's eyes shine with tears. Rings slid onto fingers, a kiss, long, tender, the kind photographers dream of. Everyone cheered. Petals rained down from somewhere off screen. I didn't breathe. The stories kept coming. Post-ceremony, champagne flutes clinking, toasts from Chloe's dad, to the best son-in-law a father could ask for. From the best man, some college buddy cracking jokes about Ethan's terrible college dance moves. First dance, Ed Sheeran's Perfect, slow and swaying under the lights as dusk fell. Ethan whispered something in Chloe's ear. She laughed, head thrown back. Family photos started popping up around 4 p.m., Chloe's parents beaming beside the couple, her siblings, 2 sisters and a brother, group shots with arms around each other, grandparents kissing cheeks, distant cousins raising glasses. Every frame was perfect, curated, glowing. There was no empty chair with a reserved for mother of the groom sign, no photo of Ethan looking toward an open spot in the front row, wishing I was there. No candid of me dabbing my eyes during the vows, because there was no me. I sat frozen, robes slipping off one shoulder, phone screen blurring through tears I hadn't noticed starting. My chest hurt, like someone had reached in and squeezed until the air wouldn't come. I kept scrolling, kept hoping maybe one more story, one hidden angle, one friend who'd tagged me by mistake. Nothing. The cake-cutting video came next, 3-tiered vanilla with fresh flowers, Ethan feeding Chloe a bite, her smearing a little frosting on his nose, laughter, applause, more champagne. I set the phone down on the coffee table. It kept lighting up with notifications, more stories, more tags, more congratulations flooding in from people who didn't know I existed anymore. I stood up slowly, legs numb, walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of the cheap Merlot I kept for bad days, drank half of it in one swallow. The burn didn't help. Back on the couch, I opened the Photos app on my phone instead, my own archive. Ethan at 2, covered in spaghetti sauce. Ethan at 10, gap-toothed grin after losing a tooth playing tag. Ethan at 18, hugging me so tight after high school graduation, I could still feel the pressure of his arms. Us at his college move-in day, me crying, him rolling his eyes but hugging me anyway. Us at Christmas 2 years ago, last time he'd been home for more than a weekend. He'd looked thinner then, distracted. I asked if everything was okay. He said yes, just busy. I stared at that last photo, our faces close, both smiling. My thumb hovered over the screen. He was married now. My son was someone's husband, and I'd watched it happen through a stranger's phone 300 miles away, alone in a house that still smelled faintly of the cinnamon rolls I'd baked the day he last called. The tears came harder then, hot, silent, unstoppable. I curled into the corner of the couch, robe pulled tight around me, like armor that had already failed. My heart didn't just break that day. It shattered into jagged pieces too small to pick up, too sharp to hold. And the worst part? The phone kept buzzing, more joy pouring in from everyone else's feeds, while mine stayed dark, silent, empty. That night, after the last wedding story faded from my feed and the champagne toasts stopped lighting up my screen, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The house felt haunted by the silence, every creak of the floorboard sounding like footsteps that weren't coming. Around 2 a.m., I gave up on the couch and shuffled to the small office nook I'd carved out of the spare bedroom years ago. It was cluttered with old photo albums, tax files, and a filing cabinet full of things I never wanted to look at again. Tonight, though, I needed answers, or at least proof that I wasn't losing my mind. I pulled open the bottom drawer labeled Ethan, College, and After. Folders stuffed with transcripts, old Ment receipts from his dorm days, thank you notes from birthdays. I started flipping through them methodically, like a detective on a cold case. My hands shook so badly I had to press them flat on the desk to steady myself. That's when I found the email folder I'd forgotten existed.
buried under a stack of printed bank statements. A plain manila envelope marked old emails backup in my handwriting. I'd printed them years ago during one of my paranoid phases after the divorce, when I was terrified of losing digital records of my son. I opened it. The first few were innocent. Chloe's email address, chloe.mwestbrook@gmail.com, popped up in threads from 2 years earlier. Polite introductions. "Hi, Mrs. Harper. Ethan speaks so highly of you. I'm looking forward to meeting you soon." My reply, warm, welcoming, offering to host dinner. Her next, "That's so sweet. We're swamped with work right now, but soon." Then the tone shifted, subtly at first. A forwarded message from Ethan to Chloe that somehow ended up in the inbox, probably an accidental CC or a reply all slip, dated 18 months ago. From Ethan Harper to Chloe Westbrook. Subject, weekend plans. "Hey babe, Mom texted again asking about meeting up. I told her we're busy. She's great, but you're right, she can be a lot sometimes. I think space is good for now. Let's keep things low-key with family stuff until after the engagement." My stomach dropped. I read it twice, then 3 times. She's great, but the words blurred. I kept going. Another one, 6 months later. This time from Chloe directly to Ethan, forwarded accidentally in a chain about wedding venues. "Ethan, your mom keeps liking my posts and commenting hearts. It's sweet, but it feels intense. My parents are already asking questions about why she's so involved. They want our wedding to feel like ours, not like we're managing someone else's expectations. Maybe set a gentle boundary. I don't want drama." His reply, "You're right, I'll talk to her. I love you." Gentle boundary. Drama. The words stung like salt in an open wound. I dug deeper. Toward the bottom of the stack was something that made my breath catch. A draft email Ethan had never sent. It was saved as a PDF printout, probably from his old laptop when he was home for a weekend and used my printer. The subject line, "Mom, I'm sorry." The body, "Mom, I don't even know how to start this. Chloe's family is different, traditional, big on appearances. They've heard bits about Dad leaving, the divorce, how things were rough for a while. Chloe mentioned it casually once and her mom latched on. They think you're going to bring drama to the wedding, that you'll make it about you or cry too much or something. I tried to explain you're not like that, but they're set on keeping the guest list small and drama-free. I hate this. I hate that I'm even writing it. But Chloe's asking me to choose peace over everything else right now. I'm not saying you're the problem. I know you're not. You've been everything to me. But I'm tired, Mom. Tired of explaining. Tired of the tension. I think it's easier if you're not there. I'm sorry. I really am. I'll call soon. Promise. Love. Ethan." He never sent it. The draft sat unsent in his outbox, printed by accident, left behind like a confession he couldn't bring himself to voice. But the words were real. They existed. And now they existed in my hands, heavy as stones. I sat back in the desk chair, the printout trembling in my lap. Tears came again, quiet ones this time, the kind that just leak out when your body has no fight left. I thought about all the nights I'd stayed up worrying he was pulling away, because of work, stress, cold feet. Not because I'd been reduced to a liability, a source of potential drama, because of a story someone else told about me. I remembered the last time he'd been home, Christmas before last. He'd seemed distant, checking his phone constantly. When I asked if everything was okay with Chloe's family, he'd shrugged. They're just protective. I'd nodded, poured him more eggnog, changed the subject. I didn't push. I never pushed. Now I understood why. I folded the papers carefully, slid them back into the envelope. My reflection in the dark window looked ghostly, pale, hollow-eyed, older than I felt entitled to be. I whispered to the empty room, "What did I do wrong?" "Nothing," a small voice answered. And everything. I'd kept the ugly parts hidden to protect him. The nights his father called drunk and demanding money. The court papers I fought alone. The way I'd sold my mother's pearl necklace to cover gaps in child support so Ethan could stay in soccer, in scouts, in the life he deserved. I'd let him believe the divorce was mutual, that his dad just needed space. I'd nodded, poured him more eggnog, changed the subject. I didn't push. I never pushed. Now I understood why. I folded the papers carefully, slid them back into the envelope. My reflection in the dark window looked ghostly, pale, hollow-eyed, older than I felt entitled to be. I whispered to the empty room, "What did I do wrong?" "Nothing," a small voice answered. And everything. I'd kept the ugly parts hidden to protect him. The nights his father called drunk and demanding money. The court papers I fought alone. The way I'd sold my mother's pearl necklace to cover gaps in child support so Ethan could stay in soccer, in scouts, in the life he deserved. I'd let him believe the divorce was mutual, that his dad just needed space. I'd carried the blame so he wouldn't have to hate either of us. And in return, they'd erased me. I stood up, legs unsteady, and walked to the kitchen. Poured another glass of wine. Didn't bother with a glass this time, just drank from the bottle. The bitterness matched the taste in my mouth. Somewhere in the haze of grief and alcohol, a cold clarity settled in. Those messages weren't accidents. They were clues, pieces of a puzzle I hadn't wanted to see. Ethan hadn't just forgotten me. He'd been convinced, by the woman he loved, by her family, that forgetting me was the kinder option. The draft email burned behind my eyes. He was sorry. But sorry wasn't enough anymore. Not when I'd watched my only child get married through a phone screen. Not when I'd become the ghost in my own son's story. I set the bottle down, wiped my face with the sleeve of my robe. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I would start looking for more, because hidden messages were only the beginning, and I wasn't ready to stay hidden anymore.
The wine bottle was empty by 4 a.m., but the draft email still sat on my kitchen table like an accusation in black ink. I couldn't stop staring at it. Ethan's handwriting, neat, slanted, the same careful cursive he'd used on Mother's Day cards when he was little. The words, "I'm sorry," stared back at me, mocking how much I'd protected him from the truth all these years. I'd spent decades building a wall around the ugly parts of our story so he could grow up without carrying the weight. Now that wall was crumbling, and I was the one buried under the rubble. Here's the part I've never told anyone. Not my sister in Tacoma, not the women in my book club, not even the therapist I saw for 6 months after the divorce finalized. When Ethan was 15, his father didn't just walk out for a fresh start, the way I'd phrased it to Ethan and anyone who asked. David didn't leave because he fell out of love, or needed space, or found God, or any of the soft lies people tell themselves to sleep at night. David left because he tried to take Ethan away from me. It started with late-night calls, slurred voicemails at 2 a.m., demanding to see his son more, saying I was turning the boy against him. Then came the lawyer letters, custody modification, full physical custody. David claimed I was unstable, working night shifts at the hospital, emotionally unavailable, letting Ethan stay up too late playing video games. Never mind that I was the one paying every bill, driving to every practice, sitting through every parent-teacher conference alone. Never mind that David's idea of fatherhood had been showing up hungover for Little League games and promising trips to Disneyland he never booked. The final threat came on a rainy Thursday in November. Ethan was at soccer practice. I was home folding laundry when the phone rang. David's voice was calm. Too calm. I've got a buyer for the house in mind. If you don't agree to let me have Ethan 50-50, I'll file for emergency custody tomorrow. I've got photos, texts, witnesses who'll say you're barely holding it together. You want a drawn-out court battle, or you want this quiet? I remember the exact sound the laundry basket made when it hit the floor, plastic cracking against tile. My knees buckled. I sat on the kitchen floor and listened while he laid out his price, $50,000, cash, wire transfer, no questions. In exchange, he'd sign over full custody to me and disappear for good. No more calls, no more threats, no more showing up drunk at Ethan's games to make a scene. I didn't have $50,000, not even close, but I found it. I emptied the emergency savings account we'd built together, every overtime shift, every skipped vacation, every skipped latte for years. I sold my mother's pearl necklace, the one she wore on her wedding day, the one she'd pressed into my hand before the cancer took her voice. I pawned the gold watch David had given me for our 5th anniversary. Ironic, I know. I took out a home equity line of credit I swore I'd never touch. I worked double shifts for 6 months straight, nights in the ICU, days sleeping in snatches on the couch while Ethan was at school. I told him I was picking up extra hours for a surprise. He believed me. Why wouldn't he? The day I wired the money, David sent one last text. Pleasure doing business. Tell the kid I love him. Then his number went dead. Blocked. Gone. I never told Ethan. Not a word. I let him believe his dad just left because he couldn't handle being a father anymore. I let him hate David quietly, in the way teenagers do. Short answers, eye rolls, whatever, he's not worth it. I absorbed the blame instead. When Ethan asked why we never heard from his dad, I said, "Sometimes people aren't ready to be parents, honey. It's not your fault. It's not mine either." I smiled through it. I cooked his favorite meals. I cheered louder at his games. I made sure he never felt abandoned. Because the alternative, telling a 15-year-old that his father tried to sell him like a used car, was unthinkable. I protected him from that poison, and in doing so, I became the villain in his story, without ever meaning to. The over-involved mom, the one who made everything about her, the one Chloe's family could point to and say, "See, drama, instability, better to keep her away." I folded the draft email and slid it back into the envelope. My hands were steady now, not from calm, but from the kind of cold fury that settles when grief has nowhere else to go. I walked to the living room and stood in front of the mantel. The photos of us stared back, Ethan at 5 hugging my leg, Ethan at graduation, cap tilted, the two of us at his college move-in, both pretending we weren't crying. I touched the frame of the last one, our faces close, smiles wide. I let you believe I was the reason he left. I let you think I drove him away so you wouldn't have to hate him. And now you hate me instead. The silence answered. I sank onto the couch, pulled the throw blanket over my shoulders. Outside, the rain had stopped. The streetlights glowed wet and orange through the window. Somewhere in Portland, my son was on his honeymoon, or maybe just starting married life in that perfect condo with the view of the Cascades. Chloe's family probably sent flowers, probably toasted to new beginnings. They didn't know the cost of my new beginnings. They didn't know I'd paid in pearls and sleep and pride to keep him safe. But Ethan did know pieces of it, or he should have. He knew I'd worked myself to the bone. He knew I never asked for anything. He knew I loved him fiercely, quietly, without conditions. Yet he still chose to believe the version where I was the problem. I closed my eyes. The ache in my chest wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It was something sharper. Betrayal mixed with exhaustion, mixed with the slow, burning realization that I couldn't keep carrying this secret alone. Not if I wanted to breathe again, not if I wanted to look in the mirror and recognize the woman staring back. I stood up, walked to the hallway closet, pulled out the box at the very back, the one labeled "Old Papers Do Not Open." Inside were the court documents I'd never shown anyone, the payoff receipts, the wire transfer confirmation, the pawn shop ticket for my mother's necklace. Proof. I set the box on the kitchen table next to the envelope. Tomorrow, I thought, tomorrow I would decide what to do with all of it. Because some secrets protect the people you love, and some secrets end up burying you alive.
The days after the wedding blurred into one long gray fog. I barely left the house, didn't answer the phone when my sister called, twice, didn't respond to the neighbor's text asking if I wanted to walk the dogs together. I existed in survival mode: coffee, shower, scroll, cry, repeat. The wedding photos kept appearing in my feed like salt rubbed into fresh wounds, friends of friends reposting them, tagged locations lighting up Portland's Willamette Valley, hashtags I couldn't escape, hashtag Ethan and Chloe forever, happily ever after, dream wedding. Every image was another stab. Ethan cutting the cake, Ethan dipping Chloe in a dramatic kiss for the photographer, Ethan slow dancing under twinkling lights, forehead pressed to hers like the rest of the world didn't exist. And in every single one, the absence of me was deafening. I couldn't take it anymore. Around 11 p.m. on the Tuesday after the wedding, 5 days since I'd watched my son marry someone else's daughter through a screen, I opened Instagram on my laptop instead of my phone.
Bigger screen, easier to hide behind. I found one of the reposts, a carousel from Sarah Jenkins again, the same high school friend who dropped the save the date bomb. 6 photos this time: ceremony, first look, portraits, reception. The caption read, "Still not over how perfect this day was. Ethan and Chloe, you guys are magic." Heart. I scrolled slowly. Photo 4, a wide shot of the head table. Ethan and Chloe in the center, flanked by their parents, her siblings, the wedding party. Empty chairs on either side, but no place card reading "Mother of the Groom." Just space. Literal, physical space where I should have been. My cursor hovered over the comment box. I knew better. I really did. Every advice column, every therapist, every wise older woman on Reddit says the same thing. Don't drunk comment, don't anonymous post, don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you break. But I wasn't drunk. I was sober, stone cold sober, and the ache had turned into something hotter, something that needed air. I clicked Create a New Account on a private browser window. Username, PNWMom, heartbroken. Profile picture, a generic stock photo of a Pacific Northwest sunset. No face, no name, no trace. Bio, empty. I went back to the post. Typed, "Beautiful day. Wish I could have been there to see my son say I do." 9 words. Simple. No caps, no emojis, no accusations. Just truth. I hit post before I could second guess it. The comment appeared instantly, grayed out under View Previous Comments. I refreshed, still there. Heart pounding, I watched. 2 minutes passed, 3. Then Chloe's cousin, someone named Emily Westbrook, profile picture a beach selfie, replied, "Who is this? Ethan said his mom passed away years ago." The words hit like ice water down my spine. Passed away. Dead. They hadn't just excluded me, they'd killed me off, erased me so completely that the easiest story was that I no longer existed. I stared at the screen, breath shallow. Emily's reply had a little shocked face emoji at the end, like this was a minor inconvenience rather than a gut punch. Below it, 2 more comments appeared almost immediately. Another friend, "Wait, what? I thought his mom was alive." Sarah Jenkins, the original poster, "Guys, chill, probably a troll or mistaken identity. Let's keep it positive." The thread devolved into awkward deflections. Someone changed the subject to the cake flavors, someone else posted a heart emoji string. But that one line stayed burned into my retinas. Ethan said his mom passed away years ago. I logged out of the fake account, closed the laptop, sat in the dark living room with only the blue glow of the streetlight coming through the blinds. He'd told them I was dead. Not estranged, not "we're not close," dead. The lie was so thorough, so final, it stole the air from the room. I pressed my palm to my chest, feeling my heart hammer against ribs that suddenly felt too small. How many people had he said it to? The entire wedding party? Chloe's extended family? Mutual friends from high school who still followed him? How many times had the words come out of his mouth, "Yeah, my mom passed a while back," while I was sitting 300 miles away, alive, breathing, missing him every single day? I stood up, paced the living room in socks, arms wrapped tight around myself. Memories flashed. Ethan at 10 asking why Dad never called. Me saying, "He's just not around anymore, honey." Ethan at 16, after a fight about curfew, yelling, "You always make everything so hard." Me biting my tongue, never telling him the real reason his dad vanished. Ethan at 25, hugging me goodbye after a rare visit, whispering, "Thanks for everything, Mom." And now I was a ghost story. I walked to the kitchen, opened the junk drawer, pulled out the old envelope of proof, the payoff receipts, the pawn ticket for my mother's pearls, the unsent draft email. I spread them across the counter like tarot cards. Evidence that I existed, evidence that I sacrificed, evidence that I loved him enough to let him believe a softer lie. But his lie was harder, crueler. I sank onto a bar stool. Tears came again, hot, angry ones this time, not the quiet grief of the wedding day. This was rage mixed with betrayal, mixed with a bone-deep exhaustion I couldn't name. They'd made me disappear so the wedding could be drama-free, so Chloe's family could smile in photos without awkward questions, so Ethan could have his normal life without the inconvenient shadow of a single mother who once paid a man to stay away from his own son. I stared at the papers until the words blurred. Then, quietly, I whispered to the empty kitchen, "You don't get to kill me off." I wasn't going to let that comment stand. Not forever. I opened the laptop again, logged back in to PNW Mom heartbroken, but I didn't post anything else. Not yet. Instead, I screenshotted the thread, Emily's reply, Sarah's deflection, the whole exchange. Proof. Another piece for the growing pile. Because silence had been my weapon for too long. Now it was time to decide if I wanted to stay a ghost or start haunting the people who buried me alive. I closed the laptop, turned off the kitchen light. In the dark, my heartbeat sounded louder than ever. Alive, still here, and no longer willing to stay quiet.
The anonymous comment stayed with me like a bruise that wouldn't fade. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily Westbrook's reply. Ethan said his mom passed away years ago. Dead. Erased. A convenient fiction so the photos could stay perfect, the toasts could stay light, the newlyweds could step into their future without the shadow of an inconvenient mother trailing behind. I couldn't live with that version of the story anymore. So I stopped waiting for him to reach out. I stopped hoping for a late apology text or a "Mom, I messed up" voicemail. Instead, I booked a one-way flight to Portland for the following Friday, exactly 1 week after the wedding. Not to crash their honeymoon. They'd posted a quick story from Cannon Beach, all sand and smiles. Not to make a scene in front of neighbors. Just to stand in front of my son and make him look me in the eye when he explained why I'd been rewritten out of existence. I used almost all my savings points for the ticket. Economy, middle seat, red eye. I didn't care. I packed light. One small carry-on with the envelope of proof, the payoff receipts, the pawn ticket for my mother's pearls, the printed draft email he'd never sent. I added the screenshot of the Instagram comment thread. Tangible evidence that I was still breathing, still here, still his mother. The flight was turbulent. I didn't sleep. I stared out the tiny window at the dark Pacific Northwest below, replaying every moment I could have said something sooner. Could have told him about his father's blackmail when he was old enough. Could have pushed harder when he started pulling away. Could have demanded a place at the table instead of accepting silence as my due. I landed at PDX just after dawn, rented a gray compact car from the airport kiosk. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed desperate mother on a mission. I punched their new condo address into the GPS. I'd found it months earlier on a change of address form Chloe had accidentally left visible on a shared wedding planning spreadsheet Ethan once forwarded me by mistake. A sleek building in the Pearl District. Exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, rooftop deck with views of the Willamette River. The kind of place that said, "We've arrived," without saying it out loud. I parked across the street and waited. Watched delivery guys drop off packages. Watched a young couple walk a golden retriever. Watched the sun climb higher and burn off the morning mist. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. I rehearsed what I'd say 100 times. Calm, measured, no yelling. I wasn't there to beg. I was there to be seen. Around 11 a.m., I saw them. Ethan first. Tall, hoodie up against the chill, carrying 2 paper coffee cups. Chloe beside him in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, hair in a messy bun, laughing at something he said. They looked happy, settled, newlywed happy. I got out of the car before I could talk myself out of it. Crossed the street. My sneakers were silent on the sidewalk. They didn't notice me until I was 10 feet away. Ethan. He froze. The coffee cups tilted dangerously. Chloe's smile vanished the second she recognized me. "Mom, what are you doing here?" His voice cracked on the last word. Surprise, guilt, maybe a flicker of fear. Chloe stepped half in front of him, protective, like I was a threat instead of the woman who'd raised him. "I needed to see you," I said quietly. My voice didn't shake. I was proud of that. In person. Chloe's eyes narrowed. "You shouldn't be here. This is our home. You can't just show up unannounced." I looked past her to Ethan. "You told people I was dead." He flinched, looked away, toward the river, anywhere but my face. "Ethan," Chloe hissed. "Let's go inside." "No." I stepped closer. "Not until he answers me." A neighbor walking her dog slowed, glanced over curiously. Ethan noticed. His jaw tightened. "Inside," he muttered. "Please." They let me follow them up the steps, through the lobby, into the elevator. The ride to the 5th floor was silent except for the soft ding of passing floors. I kept my eyes on Ethan's profile. The same profile I'd kissed goodnight 1,000 times when he was small. Now it was closed off, guarded. The condo was beautiful. Open concept, hardwood floors, white walls, plants everywhere. Wedding gifts still in boxes stacked in the corner. Photos on the mantle. The two of them on the beach. Chloe's parents at the reception. No trace of me. Ethan set the coffee cups down on the island. Chloe crossed her arms. "So talk," she said. "You flew all the way here. Say what you came to say." I pulled the envelope from my bag. Set it on the counter between us. "You told people I died," I repeated, softer this time. "Years ago." "Why?" Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. The old nervous habit. "It wasn't like that. Chloe's family. They kept asking questions. About why you weren't at the wedding. About the divorce. It was easier to say you'd passed. No follow-up. No drama. Easier for who?" I asked. "For everyone." Chloe cut in. "Your drama. Drama." The word tasted bitter. I opened the envelope, slid the bank statements across the granite. "This is why your father left, Ethan. Not because I drove him away. Because he tried to take you from me. He demanded $50,000 to disappear. I paid it. I sold my mother's pearls. I worked myself sick so you could have a normal life without knowing your dad tried to sell his parental rights like they were nothing." Ethan stared at the papers, his face drained of color. Chloe glanced down, eyes whitening. "This is manipulation. Showing up with old paperwork. It's the truth," I said. "The truth I never told him because I didn't want him to hate his father. Or me. I let him believe I was the problem so he could keep loving both of us in his own way." Ethan's hand trembled as he picked up the top sheet. The wire transfer receipt. His eyes scanned the numbers, the dates. Recognition flickered. "You paid him off." "Yes." He looked up at me then. Really looked. Tears welled in his eyes. "Mom." Chloe stepped between us again. "Ethan, she's ruining everything." Again, I met her gaze. Calm, steady. "I'm not here to ruin anything. I'm here because you killed me off in your story. And I'm still alive." Ethan reached toward me, hesitant, like he wasn't sure he was allowed. I didn't move away, but I also didn't step forward. The room hung heavy with everything unsaid for too long. And for the first time in years, the silence wasn't mine to fill alone.
The condo kitchen felt suddenly too small, the air too thick. Ethan still held the wire transfer receipt between trembling fingers, staring at the numbers like they were written in a language he'd forgotten how to read. Chloe stood rigid beside him, arms crossed so tight her knuckles blanched white. The wedding rings on their left hands caught the overhead light, new, shiny, mocking. I didn't move. I let the silence stretch until it hurt. Ethan finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "Mom, you paid him $50,000 to leave us alone?" I nodded once. "Yes." He set the paper down carefully, like it might burn him. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you were 15 and you already carried enough. Your dad was supposed to be the hero in your story, at least part of it. I didn't want to take that away too." Chloe let out a short, sharp laugh, more disbelief than humor. "This is convenient timing. You show up uninvited, drop a stack of old papers, and suddenly you're the martyr? Ethan, she's manipulating you. This is classic—" "Stop." Ethan's voice cut through hers, low but firm. He didn't look at Chloe. His eyes stayed on me. "Just stop for a second." Chloe's mouth snapped shut, her gaze flicked between us, calculating. She took one step back, leaning against the fridge like she needed the support. I kept my voice steady. "I have the court documents too, the emergency custody filing he started, the emails where his lawyer threatened to drag me through depositions, character witnesses, the works. I could have fought it, spent every penny on lawyers, put you in the middle of a war. Instead, I paid him to walk away, quietly, cleanly, so you could finish high school without headlines, so you could go to college without wondering if your dad was going to show up at graduation drunk or demanding money." Ethan's shoulders slumped. He rubbed both hands over his face, dragging them down like he could wipe the weight off. "All those years, you let me think he just bailed, that he didn't care, that it was his fault, not yours." "It was his fault," I said quietly. "I just made sure you didn't have to hate him enough to break." He looked up then, really looked. Tears brimmed in his eyes, the same hazel ones he'd inherited from his father. "I hated you sometimes, for being too much, for calling too often, for caring too hard. Chloe said, her family said, you were the reason things felt heavy, that if I just set boundaries, everything would be easier." Chloe stiffened. Ethan? He held up a hand, not angry, just done. I listened. I believed it, because it was simpler than asking why my mom never dated again, why she worked every holiday shift, why she never complained when I canceled plans last minute. I swallowed hard. I didn't want you to feel guilty. I wanted you to have a life that didn't revolve around fixing what your dad broke. The room went quiet again. Outside, a car horn blared somewhere down on the street, normal life moving on, while ours stood frozen. Chloe finally spoke, voice smaller than before. Even if this is true, why bring it up now, after the wedding? You could have said something months ago, years ago. Because you made me dead, I answered, meeting her eyes without flinching. You didn't just not invite me, you erased me so completely that your cousin thought I'd been in the ground for years. I watched my son get married on Instagram, alone in my living room, in a robe that still smells like the cinnamon rolls I baked the last time he called me. And then I found out I'd been rewritten as a corpse so your day could stay picture perfect. Ethan winced. I never said you were dead. I just said we weren't close, that you weren't coming. They assumed what you let them assume, I corrected gently, and you let them because it was easier than telling the truth. He nodded slowly, like the admission cost him something physical. I was scared of what Chloe's parents would think, scared of the questions, scared that if they knew the whole story, the money, the threats, they'd see me as damaged goods, like I came from some broken family. You don't come from a broken family, I said. You come from a family that fought like hell to stay together, even when one of us sold out. Chloe's face crumpled, not in anger this time, but something closer to shame. She looked at the papers on the counter, then at Ethan, then at me. For the first time, the perfect bride facade cracked. I didn't know, she whispered. I thought you were just overbearing, pushy, the kind of mom who guilts her kid into things. My mom warned me about those types. I believed her. I didn't respond right away. I let her words hang there. Ethan turned to her. You told me it would be easier if she wasn't there. You said your family needed normal. You said I deserved normal. Chloe's eyes filled. I thought I was protecting us, protecting you. From what? From my own mother? The question landed like a stone in still water. Ripples spread. No one spoke for a long minute. I gathered the papers slowly, sliding them back into the envelope. I'm not here to break up your marriage on day 8. I'm not here to demand a do-over wedding or apologies from your parents. I'm here because I needed you to see me, really see me, before I disappear for good. Ethan's head snapped up. Disappear? I'm tired of being the ghost. If you want me gone, say it to my face, but don't let other people write my obituary while I'm still breathing. He stepped around the island then, slow, hesitant, stopped a foot away, close enough that I could smell the coffee on his breath, the faint cedar of his cologne, the same cologne I'd bought him for his 25th birthday. Mom, he said, voice breaking. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know any of it. I know, I whispered. That's why it hurts so much. He reached out, tentative, like he thought I might pull away. I didn't. His arms came around me slowly, carefully, the way he used to when he was little and scared of thunderstorms. I felt his shoulders shake, felt the hot tears soak through my sweater. I held him back, gentle at first, then tighter, the way I'd wanted to for years. Chloe watched from the other side of the island, silent. Her perfect posture had softened, her arms hung loose at her sides. She looked smaller somehow, younger, like the truth had stripped away some of the armor she'd worn so well. Ethan pulled back just enough to look at me, eyes red. I'm so sorry. I touched his cheek, the same way I had when he was 5 and skinned his knee. I know, sweetheart. But sorry wasn't a reset button. It wasn't an invitation back into the family photos. It was only a beginning, and I wasn't sure yet if I wanted to stay for whatever came next. Ethan's arms were still around me. his face buried in my shoulder the way he used to when nightmares woke him at 3 in the morning and he'd crawl into my bed, small and shaking. Only now he was 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, married, and crying like the boy he'd once been. I held him back, gently, carefully, because part of me wanted to crush him to my chest and never let go, and another part knew that grip would only push him further away. Chloe stood frozen on the other side of the island, watching us. Her perfect posture had cracked. Her hands hung limp at her sides. The condo, bright, modern, filled with wedding gifts still half unwrapped, felt suddenly too quiet, like the whole building was holding its breath. Ethan pulled back slowly. His eyes were red-rimmed, lashes clumped with tears. "Mom, I don't even know where to start. I'm so sorry. For everything. For believing the wrong things. For letting them convince me you were too much. For not asking questions sooner." I touched his cheek, rough with stubble now, not the smooth baby skin I remembered. "I know you're sorry, sweetheart. I can see it." He swallowed hard. "I want to fix this. I want you in my life, in our life. Chloe and we can talk about it. We can—" Chloe cleared her throat. The sound was small but sharp, like glass breaking underfoot. Ethan turned to her. "What?" She looked at me, then back at him. Her voice was low, almost pleading. "This doesn't change what happened. She showed up without warning. She brought documents, accusations. This is our first week married, our home. We're supposed to be happy right now, not dealing with this." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She's my mother, Chloe. She flew across 2 states because we told people she was dead, because I let you convince me it was easier." "I didn't convince you," Chloe said quickly. "We decided together, for us, for our future. My parents, they're traditional. They wanted the wedding to feel clean, no baggage, no drama. I thought—" "You thought erasing her was clean?" Ethan's voice rose, just a fraction, the first real crack in his calm. Chloe's eyes filled. "I thought it was temporary, that you'd reach out later after things settled, that she'd understand. I didn't know about the money, the threats, none of that." I spoke then, quiet but clear. "You didn't need to know the details to know I existed, to know I raised him, to know I loved him enough to let him build a life without me in every photo." Chloe looked at me, really looked, for the first time without the defensive wall up. Her lower lip trembled. "I'm sorry. I was scared. Scared of losing him to guilt. Scared of what my family would say if they knew the whole story. I wanted perfect. I wanted normal. Normal isn't erasing someone. Normal is messy. Normal is showing up even when it's hard. Normal is loving your kid enough to carry the hard parts so they don't have to." Ethan stepped back, running both hands through his hair. "I should have fought harder. I should have told you the truth months ago, years ago. I was a coward. You were young and in love and trying to make everyone happy at once. That's not cowardice. That's human." He shook his head. "It's not enough." Chloe reached for his arm. "Ethan, please, let's sit down. Let's talk this through. We can figure it out. Family therapy, boundaries, whatever it takes." I watched her hand on his sleeve, watched the way he didn't pull away, but didn't lean in either. I took a slow breath. "I'm not asking for therapy or boundaries or a seat at your holiday table next year. I'm not asking you to choose." Ethan's eyes snapped to mine. "Then what are you asking?" "I'm asking you to let me go," I said. The words came out steady, even though they tore something inside me. "If this is the life you want, clean, drama-free, no inconvenient mother in the background, then have it, but have it honestly. Don't kill me off in stories. Don't pretend I never existed. If you want me gone, say it, to my face, and mean it." Silence stretched so long I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator. Ethan's face crumpled. "I don't want you gone. I never wanted that. I didn't know how to keep you without breaking everything else." Chloe whispered, Ethan. He looked at her, long, searching, then back at me. I love you, Mom. I always have. I just messed up so bad. I know, I said softly, and I love you too, enough to walk away if that's what keeps you from drowning in guilt. I reached into my bag one last time, pulled out a small envelope, not the proof papers, but something simpler. A single photo, him at 5, gap-tooth grin, arms around my neck on his birthday. I'd carried it in my wallet for years. I set it on the counter between us. Keep this, or don't, but remember I was here, I was real, and I'm still here if you ever decide you want the messy version of family. Ethan stared at the photo. Fresh tears slipped down his cheeks. I turned toward the door. Mom, wait. I paused, hand on the knob. He crossed the room in 3 strides, hugged me again, fiercer this time. I'm not ready to let you go. I hugged him back, held on for one long, aching moment, then gently entangled myself. I know, I whispered, but I'm ready to let you figure it out. I opened the door, stepped into the hallway. The elevator dinged softly as I pressed the button. Behind me, I heard Chloe's voice, small, uncertain. Ethan, what do we do now? I didn't wait for his answer. The elevator doors closed. I rode down alone. Outside, the Portland air was cool and damp. I walked to the rental car, slid behind the wheel, and sat there for a long minute without starting the engine. My hands shook, not from anger, but from the strange, hollow freedom of finally speaking my truth. I drove to the airport, returned the car, and boarded the next flight back to Seattle. Months passed. One Tuesday in July, my phone buzzed while I was watering the pothos on the windowsill. A text from Ethan. Hey, Mom, I'm sorry it took so long. Chloe and I have been talking, a lot. Therapy, too. I'd like to see you, if you're open to it. No pressure, just coffee or dinner, whatever you want. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the reply button. I hadn't answered yet, because sometimes the greatest love isn't holding on. It's knowing when you've said everything that needed saying and then giving the other person room to decide if they want to walk back towards you. My heart is still shattered, but the pieces, they're mine now, and I'm rebuilding them, one quiet, strong, unapologetic day at a time.